this is me back in 3 July 2025. I was 336 pounds, eating like an asshole, drinking every day, like all the whiskey. Wasn't in very good health. Cardiovascular health was pretty poor. Resting heart rate was sometimes in the low 90s, where historically I've been in the low 60s. So normally a very athletic person. In my past, ex-military, long distance cycling, long distance running, weightlifting, all that type of stuff. I just kind of gave up all that. Started drinking every night, and kind of just gave up on that. So told my wife I wanted to do fat people shots. She said, go ahead, go for it. So I started researching, ran across all the standard tides out there, semaglutides, tirzepatides, Wegovy's, all the name brands, right? But I also stumbled across Retatrutide, which was in clinical trials and still in clinical trials, but also noticed that it was rampant in the gray market. So I decided that's the route I wanted to go. If I was going to do one, I'm going to do the newest one. And I started researching. That led me to my first expensive mistake. I ended up spending, close to $1,500 on just a few vials. Justified it in my head with, co-pays would cost me this to go to a doctor, and this is how much out of pocket. Deductibles haven't been met, all that normal healthcare bullshit. So I justified it in my head because it was truly cheaper than, a year's worth of treatment that way. So that led me to correct that mistake and figure out how to get in contact with Chinese sources, direct factory type connection. So ended up with connecting with a sales rep and getting it for cheap, like $1 a milligram essentially now, slightly more. Depends on how many kits you get and all that kind of stuff to split out shipping and whatnot, but roughly $1 for Retatrutide. So I've got a sourcing guide in the description that kind of puts you in touch with the same source. So if you click that link, it'll take you out. You can purchase that, support me. All that information is on the blog. So if you want to go digging through the blog, you can go back to the earlier post and you can probably extract all that information. This is just a consolidated guide with the direct contact information for WhatsApp. Again, back in 3 July is when I started this. So this puts me at week 29 of my progress, and pretty good one. So I'm going to start off with stats for this week. So I weighed in this morning at 246.2 pounds. So that's down 4.2 pounds. That's pretty big. I'll explain a little more on that once we get into some of the more details, but total, I'm pretty stoked about this. Total since 3 July is a 90.4 pound loss total. So what's that, 7 months? Yeah. So I don't know. I feel pretty impressed with that. It's a pretty big number for me. It's not quite 100, which would be even cooler, but we're not far from 100, right? So we're under 10 pounds away from 100, and we will get there in spring. So probably end of February timeframe, I'm thinking. So 4 to 5 weeks, I'd bet, just based on progression I've been going. Another big win in the waist area. So I measure my waist with a digital tape measure. And today's measurement was 37.04 inches. I measure about 1.5 inches to almost 2 inches above my belly button for that measurement. So that's a reduction of 0.63 inches. So down quite a bit. A lot of that is subcutaneous water, I think. And obviously fat mass, because fat mass was down 2.6 pounds. So that brings my body fat down 0.6% this week, totaling current body fat measured by the scale 22.7%. So looking pretty good. All of this will get validated when I go up on February 14th, and I'll do a DEXA scan. So I've done two other DEXA scans, and they were 12 weeks apart. So next one's gonna be 12 weeks. So you get the pattern, right? Every 12 weeks, I'm gonna do DEXA scans to validate and make sure the trends that are on my Renfro scale just match, right? I don't think it's gonna be so far off that I don't think it's gonna be like several tens of pounds off or anything like that. It's probably going to be a variance of 1 to 2% if I had to guess, but we'll validate that. Another big change is that it's detecting my visceral fat score went down again another point, so it went down from 10 to 9. And that's just super dangerous fat, right? The visceral fat, you're going to have visceral fat, but that's the silent killer, the stuff that's coating your organs and heart and all that nasty crap inside you that's going to give you a heart attack, essentially. Visceral fat is no good, which was a big concern of mine when I started this, and obvious from the photo that you saw at the beginning. Huge belly distension, definitely fatty liver. All that stuff has essentially been corrected in basically 7 months with a few $100s worth of treatment. So this is life-changing, essentially. Especially for somebody in the same position as me, right? You got a lot of visceral fat, where a lot of men store fat. That's just where it naturally goes for men, and borderline dangerous, right? So huge victory for me this week. I'm pretty happy about that. I'm happy with the way I look in the progress photos. So I will get into those. I usually will do the stack next, but I'm going to get into progress photos. So we'll throw up a side-by-side comparison here. We'll start off with front. I'm not real happy with this. I picked my bedroom when I started this in July, and not really thinking about downlighting or lighting in general. So there's a lot of natural light in there, and I'm standing right in front of a window. Yeah, side, but definitely trimming in the midsection and under the arms. So lower chest fat and under the arms, but I attribute that some of that is there has been some development in upper pec. So that's probably like a muscle pulling the skin tighter up as well too. So that, for me, that's a positive in that direction. Back here, so I don't know, I see a taper. I see a nice wide shoulders, starting to taper, waist is trimming down. It's coming together. It's slowly coming together. It's not as fast as I want it. I want it now, just like everything else, but that's not the case with fat loss, right? It took me 6+ years to get this fat, and it's phenomenal that I was able to do it, even pharmaceutically aided, this fast. Just some alternate pictures here. Different bathroom than last week, but still the same. Front, side, a little bit better, a little more flattering lighting, so shadows look a little bit better on the midsection. So really starting to see upper ab separation. Still fair amount of skin's fairly thick. There's still some water and fat, but I don't know, I'm pretty happy. Things are starting to come back through. Back, a little bit of a bicep pose here. So yeah, progress photos are fantastic in my opinion. This is probably the best I've looked since starting. Happy about them. I can see a difference from last week compared to this week. The mirror checks, I look better. I think the camera doesn't necessarily flatter as much as the mirror and the eyeball does, and that could be my brain filtering out stuff, but I think likely scenario is that the camera is doing some flattening of things to give you the optimal picture that the manufacturer thought was best for all scenarios. yeah, so that's progress photos. Let's bust into the stack. Stack is pretty simple. If you've been following me, you know that sometimes I've got SLU in there. I've got 5 amino 1 MQ in there sometimes. Those have been pulled for several weeks, and I'm down to this stack here, which is 12 milligrams of Retatrutide. So I pinned that on Monday mornings. I was originally doing split dose, and that was a layover from when I was on 8 milligrams. I used to split dose that. After a few weeks of doing it, I was getting hungry, so instead of increasing my dose, I tried to split dose it. But then I eventually just jumped up to 12, and I kept that habit in there of 6 and 6, so 6 Monday, 6 Thursday. But a couple weeks ago now, I missed a Thursday and then a Friday, and then it was just too late to throw in another random dose. So toughed it out till Monday and decided I was just going to do all 12 milligrams and get back on a weekly dosage. I do have some bouts of hunger with that dosage, but I think it's my activity level and metabolism going faster. It's just how it is. So I am, even though it looks like I may have lost muscle mass this week with the 1.2 down, but that's really water weight. If you look at the water and then look at the muscle, they're exactly matching. And when I talk about my water focus this week, it'll make more sense. But I'm also on 5 IUs of HGH. So I had some issues a couple weeks back with water retention with that, and that caused some blood pressure spikes, mainly on the systolic pressure went up, but HRV was low, and resting heart rate was normal, in the 60s, so like 62, and HRV was mid 40s, so very steady state. Lower blood pressure was good, so that was always been in the 60s, but I am on an ARB medication for that. So I take 40 milligrams a day to even out the water retention. So it's good for the kidneys and good for blood pressure, to keep that from being in check. So that's helped tremendously with any water retention. I'm not really seeing that, and that's pretty clear based off of this week. But I'm really enjoying that 5 IUs of HGH. I'm doing shallow intramuscular. Some do it subcutaneous, some do it intermuscular, some split their dose. I've tried split dosing, I've tried lower dosing. I didn't really feel true, solid, like, oh, this is doing something effects until 5 IUs and intramuscular. So I use a insulin pen, and I just go usually in the delt, and then sometimes in the tricep. So I'll just flex, find a good spot, and then I'll just press in and do a shallow intramuscular injection with that. Doesn't hurt, doesn't leave any bruising for me anyway, and works pretty good. I am on testosterone TRT. That's a prescription through Alpha MD. They are a clinic, so I get a prescription for 150 milligrams a week. So 10 milliliter vial gets sent to me from a compounding pharmacy. And originally they had me doing 3 subcutaneous injections. I'm not a fan of subcutaneous injections with oil. It leaves lumps in my fat. I don't like it. I've had one that's not gone away and probably never will at this point. So I switched to intramuscular, and I just split it evenly. So 75 and 75 Monday and Thursday, and it's been even. My blood levels are even. I don't feel a crash. I know some feel the spike and then taper off before their second dose. I don't feel that personally, so I'm happy with the intramuscular, and I've got pretty much every site open for that in rotation. So quads, glutes, and delts is what I'm doing. So I'll just rotate, quads, glutes, and delts in that order, actually, and then start the sequence back over again. So it's pretty low intensity for me, and I don't have any post-injection pain from any of those types of injections, so I'm lucky in that regard. So I know a lot of folks get knots and can't walk and all that type of stuff, but I'm fairly lucky in that regard. The last thing that's in my stack is 2 milligrams of GHK-CU. That is, I added that as a like an insurance policy. It's supposed to help with loose skin, systematically, collagen and all the stuff. It's super well studied. It's used dermatologist, microneedling, all kinds of stuff, but one of the methods of delivery is subcutaneous. I know a lot of folks get some, they say it's spicy, meaning it burns a little bit. I don't have that. I mix my own. I buy raw, and I mix with backwater, and I usually make a 12 or a 10 milligram per milliliter, 10 milliliter vial at a time, and I just draw from that. So it's fairly diluted, if you will, with no filler. So because it's raw powder, I don't have the fillers that they use in the freeze drying process in there. And then always filter, right? So always filter with PES filters anytime you're mixing with raw stuff, right? So you can buy all that stuff on Amazon. There's a blog post. I will leave a link in that. So if you need a link to how to filter your peptides, that'll put you in the right direction, at least for supplies and process. Yeah, so that's the stack, and that's kind of the rundown for it. Like I said, this week was highly focused. If you followed me on my dailies, I wanted to focus on to stop lying to myself about how much water I was drinking. So I like to think that I at least got my gallon of water a day or a little bit more, but I don't. So I wanted to focus. I wanted to find an app. I thought maybe Amazfit would have a built-in water tracker. It seems like a most basic, like core fundamental thing to have nowadays. But I didn't find, I didn't find one. It could have been hidden. I don't know. I did find one in the store, but it was like $2. And I'm not going to link my card on there. I'm just not going to. I don't feel like I need apps on my watch anyway. So I went looking for an app on Android, the Play Store, and garbage. Nothing against any of those developers, but I'm not gonna sit there for full page ads just to click I drank a glass of water. So I just made my own, and it's hosted on here on Retatrutidelog.com. If you go on the main menu, click water tracker. If you haven't created one already, you can create one. You can pick like a password, so you got to give it a password. There's no usernames or accounts. What happens is it generates a unique slug, like 3 words, like fairy tooth person, something memorable. Generates a slug like that for you. So it'd be like Retatrutide log /water/slug. And then once you're logged in, there's cookies and all that kind of stuff that keep your session kind of going to your current tracker. So they are publicly available. So if you do share that slug or whatever, there's no list of them out there. But if you were to share it, person without the password just would be able to see your stats and history, not necessarily make edits for you. Password login would be required to make edits. So just a cheap little way for I don't have to add accounts to there and validate emails and all that kind of happy stuff. So for me, it was helpful. I don't have ads. It's my blog. I own it. So I could go on there and I could easily just keep it in a tab and hit, plus throughout the day when I was drinking water at work or at home. And, it worked fairly well. I was not able to hit my goal. I set my goal of 196 ounces or 1.5 gallons. Didn't quite make it. If you look, I got I get 1.3 gallons and then I kind of tap out. So that I kind of had a unwritten rule of to stop at 6 because I don't want to be up all night peeing. So usually by 6 or 6:30, I'd have my last glass of water and just start winding down for the night. And that usually equaled out to 1.3 gallons. What I was able to get down in that period. But that is what I believe caused a bit of a mini water flush. So it kind of tricked my body. I didn't yank the water like you would in a normal flush, but I kept up the constant hydration. And I think that resulted in a lot more subcutaneous water evacuating, which is a good thing in my opinion, because it gets rid of some of the bloat. I look a little bit leaner in the photos today, and it's probably closer to my true body weight. But you see the trade-off, right? It shows a trend of a 1.2 loss of muscle mass, but then also a 1.2 pound loss of water. So the scale is a bit thrown off right now, right? So scale is, you know, a basic impedance one, so it's not like a super uber specific. It's a dumb little shocker thing, right? It just sends a current through your body and kind of makes the best guess based on the algorithm. So I'm going to keep that hydration focus up. I'm going to keep the same level of drinking up. So I'm hoping that will just maintain the semi-dry look that I feel better. I don't feel as bloated, and my joints are feeling pretty good. So it was clear I was drinking just enough to not be super duper dehydrated, but I was mildly dehydrated, I believe. So yeah. Other thing that kind of changed with this week was diet, not necessarily the calories at all, but how I was consuming and the timing of those calories. So I kept in breakfast. So post-workout breakfast with about 100 grams of carbs. I did introduce sourdough bread in conjunction with the white rice and eggs and cottage cheese and all that kind of stuff. But the big change was I just moved back to a fasting state post breakfast. So I'd eat breakfast post gym just to replenish glycogen and feel better, and just kind of have a little bit more energy after working out. And I would fast into I am fasting until approximately 5:30. So about a 8-ish hour window of fasting again, which, tracking my glucose and my ketones, I could watch my ketones kick up. I personally, when I switch over, I get flushing in my cheeks, specifically about here, and then my ears. Like, that is the tail sign for me. If my ears are beet red, I am definitely in ketosis, or I'm sick. Every time I've ever tested ketone levels, blood ketone levels, with flushing and beet red, hot to the touch ears, definitely some thermogenic conversion happening in my body at that point. So that opened up another fat burning window during the day while I was active, and I don't feel hungry during that period, and it fits for my work schedule. And that's what I did originally. Is I wouldn't even eat breakfast before, and then I would just fast and do an OMAD, where basically I would consume 4 meals back to back from 5:30 to 8, I guess, at night. So about a 3-ish hour window before. But I was doing low carbohydrate and much lower calories. So right now I'm 22-ish 100 calories right now, I think, or 2250, I think. I got to look at the exact calculation again, but before, during the front load of all this at low carbohydrate, leaning more towards carnivore, I was in the 15 to 1800 calorie range, more so on the 1500 side, sometimes even terribly down into the 1350s, just because the Reta at the beginning was very harsh on my appetite suppression. So saving the calories to the end was kind of a hamstring, but now I've opted to switch my eating up. I introduced carbs because I'm optimizing for performance in the gym versus strictly just weight loss at this point. So more body recomposition, if you will, than straight race the scale to the bottom. Because as you can see, the scale can lie to you. It's lied to me several weeks in a row, but I think it's worth having a smart scale over, one with 6 to 8 different sensors on it to track the trends versus just straight scale weight. Because if you're retaining water, you could get depressed over water retention, and you're still losing, you lost 2 pounds of fat, but you gained 5 pounds of water because of something you ate, or sodium was off from potassium, and blah blah blah. It's all chemistry. But I know a lot of people lose motivation when the scale doesn't move, or they get stuck at a specific weight. But at the same time, they're telling me or saying, well, my pants fit different. Well, what do you think's happening? If things are fitting different, you look different visually, but the scale isn't changing, your body composition is changing. So that's I guess that's a little rant on smart scales. Link in the description. So yeah, diet change. I lost a little bit of sleep this week, so my wife and I are kind of two different sleep schedules, I guess, if you will. So she's not, I wouldn't call her a night owl, but she's not going to bed at 9 o'clock with me sometimes. So if I want activities, if you catch my drift, I'm gonna have to kind of stay up a little bit, and I opted to do that 2 nights in a row, and that blew up Wednesday. So I hit a wall Wednesday. I just didn't have it in me to force a workout or force content. So we're short one video, so I killed my streak of dailies. Wednesday, wasn't able to get content out, wasn't able to get to the gym, but I was able to recline in my chair and take a 90-minute nap before getting up and getting ready for work. But that was an indicator of needing a little more balance there, not being so focused on the activities part, and maybe try and balance that out. Not sure I'll win out in that. Not sure my brain will win out in that regard next time the opportunity comes up, but maybe it will just be an unplanned maintenance day. But that sleep deprivation did catch up to me, and because I've got a hard fast, I'm gonna get up at 4, that back planning really doesn't give you much time, right? You got to be in bed by 9 to get any kind of decent amount of sleep. For 4 o'clock in the morning wake up really should be closer to 8:30 to get you your good sleep. But my sleep composition through all this is still in that range of an hour and a half or an hour and a quarter of REM and deep, usually evenly split. So usually split within 5 or 10 minutes of each other combined. So usually in that 6.5 or 6 hour 40-minute window, 3 hours or 3.5 hours sometimes is all usually REM or deep sleep. So I really attribute that to my magnesium sleep supplement that I take, which is by Earth Elixir. That I was a little skeptical of that. It doesn't make you drowsy, a little bit, I guess, relaxes you, but it's not going to knock you out or make you sleepy like melatonin. So it's not like a sleep aid like that. But it took about 20 days of taking that stuff for me to start to see actual more deep sleep logged. And that, I guess it could be placebo, but it's placebo enough for me to put it on subscription. So I've got it on subscription through Amazon, and I think it's great. it's like most of the components that Dr. Huberman has in his sleep stack with a little bit of variance on it. Like I think there's valerian root in there, which he doesn't recommend or put in there, but the three big ones is kind of what I've been after. Is I've always wanted to try that sleep stack, and I'm like, why the hell isn't there one with just all of these things? He should just make a supplement or contract a supplement with company with all these in it, and I would just buy it, because I hate like multiple pill bottles to achieve one thing. So if I can find a tested source, which this is a tested, well, third party tested. So anyway, that's that. Finnrick, super duper slow, no updates from them. Last word I got from them is like 2 to 3 weeks, and we're going on 2 weeks now, so I guess that means 3 weeks. So they've had the package, or at least they've had the vial, since 24 December. So accounting for all the holidays and stuff in there. So there's a bit of a lag I expected, but we're getting up there in time. So I will no longer be using Finnrick for my test. It's a great service. I think if you need a free test, by all means continue to use it. I don't think there's anything wrong with their test procedures or anything like that. I just think they're overwhelmed and shifting into a business model that's focused more on the profiting than maybe testing some of the free stuff as fast as they used to. So I have more kits coming in, same source. I've got some 30 milligram kits coming in. That'll be tested. I'm going to use a place out of Tennessee, Freedom, and I will be making contact with them probably next week. I'm anticipating, I've already got word that the next shipment's been handed off from the boat, the courier, however it got through customs, don't know, don't care. It's been handed off to FedEx on the state side in California, and it is headed towards me. FedEx, or at least I haven't checked it this morning, FedEx just hasn't scheduled a delivery date for it. So I know the route that it's taking, FedEx is going to put it on a train most likely for part of the way to like probably St. Louis, and then from there truck it this way. So yeah, so it's I'll pay out of pocket for that. I don't know how much it's going to cost yet, but I'm going to document all that. So we'll document the process of testing directly through a lab, versus going through Finnrick, right? So I've already documented the Finnrick portion, and I've just been using them for free test essentially. But I am the product if it's free, right? So they're using the data to populate their database, and now they're pushing for users to advocate to their sources and suppliers to join the Finnrick family, so to speak, with a paid sponsorship type deal. So that was in their last newsletter they put out. So, yep, long story short, I'm not using Finnrick, lost 90 pounds, lost a little bit of sleep this week, and feeling pretty good. So I will see everybody Monday morning on daily vlogs. This one's a little bit longer, but thanks for watching. I appreciate all the subscribers. We've I think we had like 40 new subscribers this week. Still blows my mind that anybody wants to listen to me jabber on about Retatrutide or my fat loss at all. So thank you for that. I appreciate all the comments. I continue to love to answer those, and I get a lot of emails. So if you don't feel comfortable leaving a comment or want to reach out over email, I got a contact form on retatrutidelog.com. You can always use that. That'll start an email chain between us, and I'll answer what I can. But remember, I'm not a doctor, so I can't help you cure cancer or something, right? It's not in my MO. I can give advice, I guess, externally, but I just want to be very clear. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a dude trying to lose some weight and get back in shape and documenting how I'm doing it. So hopefully that'll help somebody. good luck. I hope everybody's losing as much weight as I am, and I will see everybody Monday.